It is another day, another episode of the Ride Along here today. And Matt, how you doing? Welcome back on. Travis, how are you doing as well, man?
Doing good, man. It's been a busy couple days. We had a big windstorm in Dallas, Fort Worth. So yeah, it's been crazy.
So you're in Dallas, Matt. Obviously, you're down in Houston.
I'm in Houston, just arriving back from Las Vegas, actually.
Oh, we got to talk a little bit about that because we talked in the last episode about it for sure. I want to hear gossip and whether or not you and Bo got into a fight.
We did not, actually. It was a bromance, to say the least. It's not the least. I don't want to get anybody like too excited or whatever. It was just we're bros, man. You know, if there's, you meet people online. I've been talking to Bo on the phone. I've talked to him, online or whatever for like 3 years. You sometimes wonder, like, if these people are going to be the same in person as they actually are, like their virtual self. I actually didn't ever question that really with Bo, and it was exactly what you would expect. Man, he's my brother from another mother, man. We're just we're buddies, and we had a real good time stomping around Vegas, and really, I mean, like, I can't think of anybody else I'd rather walk around that show and try to learn about stuff with. He has a really, he's got we're much different in the way we think. And so when we're walking through the show and seeing all this new and cool stuff, he's like, oh, wow, let's go check this out. And then we end up in a booth I would have never gone in. And then next thing you know, we're making videos. And so we've got content for days, probably weeks because of it.
See, I get to edit all that out, and it was a bromance where we went into a booth that I wasn't thinking about, and we were making, and I can just make it say whatever after that. This is
some magic of editing.
Okay, though, on the ride along here. See, and this is why you guys need to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Definitely do, because the conversation with Bo last time was fantastic, and we're having a good conversation here today. With Mr. Travis as well. So first of all, Travis, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do up in Dallas, kind of what your specialty is. Because before we jump into the topic, after you introduce yourself, we got a little new segment that we're going to be kind of doing here. So first, cool. Tell everybody who you are, man.
Yes, Travis Jones in Dallas, serving all kind of Dallas-Fort Worth market. And my company is called Smart Roof and Home Performance. And then on Instagram, I'm Travis Builds It. And so we do roofing, home performance testing, insulation, and then kind of within that, I like to drill down on, for residential roofing, we do fortified roofs, which is kind of the next standard for how to do a better, more resilient roof. And then on the insulation side, I do blower door testing and blower door assisted air sealing to try to tighten up the envelope, give people a more comfortable and healthy home.
No, I love it, definitely. And, kind of in talking with Matt a little bit leading up to this, one of the things that we really want to dig in on today, and I think for everybody watching, this is what's going to be interesting. We're not just talking home inspections. We're not just talking roofs. We're going to be talking a little bit about building science, because in your dealings with roofing, it's not just roofing material, shingles, or anything of that nature that you specifically deal with, but you also deal with solar a little bit as well, don't you?
I do, yeah. Yeah, so I've dabbled in solar. Solar was kind of, when interest rates were low, solar was a little bit more attractive to people. I think it was a better value. But as interest rates have gone up, unfortunately, solar can be one of those industries where people oversell what it can do for you and overpromise. And it was really because of seeing some of the failures of solar, I got interested in building science and figuring out, can we make a home better first before we put solar on it? And that's what led me to get a blower door and start doing home performance testing and trying to just make the house better so that solar, if it's appropriate, it's not appropriate for every house, especially some of the ones, if all the panels are in the shade,
it's not really,
it's not really doing anything. And unfortunately, down the street from me, I've got someone who has just a full array, just always shaded. It's like, that's just not how solar works. But let's assume you get the house really, fine-tuned and working well. Solar's a great, like, cherry on top. But it's something we have to be a little more cautious about, as I've learned a lot more about building science.
I love it because when I first met you, at least in person, Travis, this is actually what kind of fascinated me and I said, man, we need to talk about this, like on a podcast or on some form. We need to have this conversation because it was intriguing to me that you were, I think, selling solar equipment, and you were walking to these houses and realizing these people did not need solar equipment. They needed better energy efficiency. And that, motivated you to start your business. If I have that storyline correct, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of when I started Smart Roof and Home Performance a little over, we're in our third year. So October of 2022, I've been selling solar for about a year and a half. I've been selling roofs for other companies. And then I just kind of saw an opportunity to bring it all together and really do a little more of a high touch. I'm not a volume churn and burn guy. I like to do a little more high touch with the client, figure out what do they really need. And then solar kind of fits into that discussion. Some people come to me wanting solar, and we're like, hey, let's do a few other things first, and then we can get to solar later on. So I started my own company so I could do things the way I wanted to do them.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. So let me ask you a question about that. Like, I think we're probably going to bounce a little bit from solar to energy efficiency, and really with a core topic being building science. But solar in Texas is not very popular, and I want to know like your take on. How do you feel about once we get a house in better energy efficient condition? Once we address some of these issues where you're losing efficiency. You actually think even in Texas that solar is still a good option?
I think it can be, but it's all about like, what are your goals with solar? So sure. If you have, let's say your house, we've tightened up the envelope, we've improved the insulation, we've gotten better, more efficient HVAC. Once we do all that, we say, okay, now we need solar. Well, if you were to analyze that house before you did all the improvements, and then after you did all the improvements and put the numbers on all these solar proposal tools, after you do all the improvements, you would need a lot less solar.
Got it.
So that's a good starting point. You need fewer panels, which means it's less cost. So now it's less that you're even risking on it. Okay. And to the extent that it can offset your electricity bill a little bit, that could be a good thing. But what we really need in the whole energy space is better storage options, i.e. batteries, because right now they're really expensive and they don't make financial sense. So in our market, they make sense in markets where there's much higher electricity costs, but the battery's not going to pay for itself in Dallas, Fort Worth. It's just not going to. But if you get outages and you want to have a battery so that you can keep your freezer and all the meat you got from hunting season from staying frozen, or if you want to keep your CPAP machine running at night, maybe that's a good reason to do it. But it's not right now. Here's the question I ask people. I say, why do you want solar? And if the first thing they say is to save money, I'm like, then we need to have a serious conversation, because you're not most likely going to save much money in Texas because our energy costs are still pretty low.
Right.
And when they buy back whatever you send to them, they buy it kind of at a discount. So there's just a lot of hype. Yeah, there's a lot of hype with it. And then the whole thing of like, oh, well, it adds value to your house. I mean, really? How many realtors are like, oh, take that off so we can list your house?
It's actually questionable whether or not it adds value. A lot of people in Texas don't really want it yet. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that our energy is not very expensive as compared to some other areas. And that's the reason why I wanted to know, like in Texas, if it made sense. What you're saying makes total sense. So like, just lower the amount of energy you actually need by making your home more efficient. Put your money into those areas, and then let's see if we even want to go that direction after all of that, because I think you probably see a lot more direct benefits by handling these issues whenever you have somebody such as yourself go through there and really pick the house apart and start finding areas where you're missing efficiency. Now, with that being said, because I've seen you with the smoke pen and everything, going through and finding areas where houses are leaking. By the way, I have one of those coming. Not that one.
Oh, no. Okay.
But there's another company that actually manufactures a product called Flue Blocker, and it's something that goes inside your chimney flue when you're not using it, out of like big thick wool, and it's there to keep drafts from coming in through that area. It's really cool.
How's that use insulation?
What's that?
I've seen some people like stuff vacant chimneys or vacated chimney
This
insulation.
is the same thing, except it's thinner, but it's like it's more like a mineral wool or something like that, and it's got handles on it, and it's sized specifically for the area. I mean, I think it's a really good idea to block that area when you're not using it, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And so I'll let you know what those are. But anyway, they also manufacture a smoke pencil or smoke pen or something like that. And so they're sending one over, and I'm gonna take a look at that and see how I might be able to incorporate that as well, because I've seen you using it, and it seems like such a great tool, especially in conjunction with the blower door. But where are the areas that you're seeing? Let's say existing homes.
Mm-hmm.
What are the areas that you are seeing that are failing the most often in terms of energy efficiency? Things that are like I want to call it like low hanging fruit. Like you walk into a house and you're like, okay, well, first of all, we need to do this, this, and this.
Yeah. And first, just so you kind of understand the way I think about a house is a system, right? It all works together. And in building science, you kind of have the 4 pillars of that system: durability, comfort, health, and efficiency, right? So if we're not going to build it to last, why are we building it? If we don't have the most durable approach to shed water and all that, right? But then what do we do to make a house more comfortable and healthy, mainly air quality, but that's also sound and light, it's environmental quality. Here's the cool thing. If you make a house durable, comfortable, and healthy, it will be efficient.
Now, here's a question that I want to kind of pivot off of that, specifically because I did an episode of the Ride Along last year. We kind of got two different tacks with the show here. One is the podcast as we're doing now, but there was also kind of a video series that I shot last year, and I got to do an episode with an inspector just outside of Austin. And one of the things that we have here in Florida is something that's happening out in Texas as well, which is that they are throwing up new homes faster, than you can blink, right? Yeah. So when it comes down to durability, what standards are you seeing, or what are things that people can do to improve upon durability in houses that are being chucked up as quickly as they are these days?
Well, in my opinion, it always starts with the roof, right? Your roof is your umbrella, and it's supposed to, and I always tell my guys, I'm like, hey, what's a roof's job? To keep the water out, right? Water destroys buildings. So we just we need to do better roofs. And that's why you could look at the whole fortified standard. It's a better than code approach. And we do it when we're re-roofing. We're doing one tomorrow, in fact, where it's things like taping the seams on the deck, re-nailing the deck, making it more secure, and then doing everything to keep the water out. So you start with a better roof, siding. I'm sure more people are getting familiar with the concept of a rain screen on siding, where you have your sheathing, and then you don't just put your siding against it, but you create a number of ways to do it. But you're creating a gap for draining and drying, so that moisture gets behind the siding, it can drain and dry. So it starts with that.
Beyond vapor barrier, yeah.
For sure. And then, if you have issues with drainage, you got to deal with that. So, but we start with the roof. I think, unfortunately, the code, it's interesting. Fortified is a better than code way to do a roof, but most of the time the roofs that are being built and re-roofed, which happens a lot, especially in my market, it's like the biggest hail market, they're not even being built to code to begin with. People don't change the flashing, which leads to failures. People don't have the ventilation right. That's one of the things we fix the most. Even when someone doesn't need a re-roof, we'll go in and say, man, you're under ventilated, which may mean you need more exhaust, but it often means you need more intake, soffit vents, or other types of intake vents. So we want to ventilate it right. And once we do that, that helps the performance. And then I think from a low-hanging fruit standpoint, Matt, as you mentioned, like a homeowner could do this, and I've got some videos of me doing it at my own house. A lot of times after a renovation, right? Contractor goes in, cuts a bunch of holes, and puts we love recessed lights, right? All those recessed lights. But if they don't air seal around those lights, it's kind of crazy math. If you take a 6-inch can and cut the drywall and you don't seal that gap between the drywall and the can, it's basically the same thing as putting a golf ball size hole in your sheetrock. And if you multiply that times 20 lights, right?
Right.
That's a big hole connecting your attic air you don't want to be breathing to your inside air. And so going and getting a tube of Big Stretch and pulling off the trim, and if it's not sealed, just big stretching around your lights or around your AC grills. That's a weekend project that most people could do, and that's low-hanging fruit.
Right. Definitely. I like the Sashco plug there.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic company, but and Big Stretch is the tool for that job. But yeah, I mean, that's an area where not only are we talking about like the thermal energy, but also like dust and things are coming through those holes as well.
Absolutely.
Especially when the house is, pressurized and depressurized, whether it's using fans or whether it's opening and closing doors or whatever. Like you said, a lot of times, whenever you'll get those situations where a home will like depressurize whenever you're using an exhaust fan because they don't have makeup air or something like this. Well, I see this in homes every now and again, and you can just imagine like what's happening whenever things are moving from the attic space into the house, and all the stuff that's in your attic, not only just the air and the temperature, but all the dust and debris that it's bringing with it.
Here's like a quick, like simple example. So I was at a person's house and they said, man, this tiny little hallway, so like main living space, hallway into a bedroom. Okay, that hallway, there were doors, a door from the living room into the hallway and a door from the hallway into the bedroom. They said, it gets so hot in this hall. Why does it get so hot in here? So I'm, looking at it. I said, well, first of all, you have an AC return at the bottom of the sheetrock in the hallway. And right above me was the attic stair. And so I actually just closed the doors, turned on the air conditioner. I had my little manometer and I stuck a hose under the door and it depressurized by 8 pascals that little space. And I'm like, wow. It's just sucking air from every time your air conditioning kicks on, it's sucking air from around that attic stair into your living space. So you need to air seal your attic stairs, or we're going to start installing, we're doing our first one next week, the Facro attic stair. Did you see those at the build show?
I did.
Dude, those are amazing. They have like a little key, you lock them, and it's an air sealed attic stair.
How are they achieving that? Is it just simply using like weather stripping around the hatch, or
it's the way they build it? Yeah, it's they're not cheap. I think we're getting one that's about a $700 door. And there's different prices. The one we're getting has a cool like metal stairs, but you maybe get them as low. The wooden stairs maybe as low as like $350. But basically, because there's weather stripping and the way they built it, when it shuts and you turn the key and it latches, it's airtight. And they also make a cover you can put on it to have another layer that has an airtight deal. And
you talk about those encapsulated foil contraptions that go around the top of the attic access.
Yeah, the funny thing about those, I've got some funny videos about those. Everyone thinks, oh, I'm insulating. It's like, yeah, but you're not air sealing. So I was in an attic, and it was a great friend, Evan, who's a mold inspector. He's part of our BS and Beer group here in Dallas. And he's done his own, like a lot of DIY stuff at his house. And he thought he'd done a good job of sealing that attic stair. And he had the little silver deal. And so we go up in the attic. I have the blower door running, and I've got my little RetroTech air tracer running along the seam, and it's just sucking air into the house. It's like, even Evan, who's a very conscientious, knows what he's doing. It's just sometimes just not the right product. You just need a better product to serve that purpose.
I've got a question on this, simply because, again, when I got into the home inspection field almost 10 years ago, a lot of what you heard people talking about was that you wanted the house to be able to breathe, right? You wanted the house to be well ventilated, to be able to breathe. And yet a lot of the modern language is about air sealing. Like, do you actually want the house to breathe, or do you want it to be airtight? Which is it? So
Allison Bales has been running this blog for years called Energy Vanguard. He's out of Atlanta. He's a brilliant guy, brilliant building science guy. And he wrote a book called A House Needs to Breathe, or Does It? And he talks about it. He said, look, if you're inside something that's breathing, you better get out. No, he said, a house does need to breathe only to the extent that we make it breathe.
Controlled ventilation.
It's controlled. So it's like And another phrase you'll hear the building science guys say is build tight, ventilate right.
Right.
So
there you go.
It's because where do you want the air coming from? Do you want to breathe naturally from, like, who wants to spend time in their attic if you have an unconditioned attic? That you don't want to breathe that air. So we want to air seal all of that. And if you get tight enough to where you need, the highest end fresh air, like an ERV, you do that. But maybe you just need a ventilating dehumidifier just to get some fresh air in there. And if it's an older home, you may never get it so tight in a retro that you need fresh air coming in. It can't hurt, but I think you have to, an unconditioned attic needs to breathe. We want good ventilation, but a house only needs to breathe to the extent that we are controlling it. It's about control.
Now, I think like to add something to that and to like kind of expand upon what your question was, Brad, like, when you're talking about these old houses, I think you should kind of compare them more to an attic. Okay. Like the fact of the matter is, like, we are building houses to try to achieve better energy efficiency. This has been going on for a long time now. And while we're making advancements like into like passive houses and houses that have like crazy energy efficiency, there's this space where, like, we have the old houses that like basically weren't efficient. And then we have the houses like in between the high performance that are like somewhat efficient. And, anytime you get past that old house where like it was completely, you'd have a 2,000 square foot house with like a 4.5 ton AC on it because they had barely any, if any, insulation. They had single pane windows. There was like no R value anywhere going on these things. You don't want to encapsulate that, right? Like you don't want to eliminate air movement. Like you have to. And that was the reason why you think like, okay, well, we didn't air seal things like back in the day. Like, why were houses not just completely filled with mold? Well, they compare them to an attic. Air was literally moving through them the whole time, but there was also costing a lot more in energy because, you had to have much bigger units and you had to run them a lot more to cool them or heat them. You were constantly losing heat in these houses. And so, as we get into more modern construction, we're getting more energy efficient, and then it becomes more important to manage ventilation and to have everything be air sealed and control what is going through the house, because that's where the danger happens, is whenever we get into this zone where we're getting energy efficient and we lose control of ventilation. That's when all of a sudden the stuff from outside starts making it inside where it's not supposed to, and we end up in situations where we have mold, where we're not just uncomfortable, but we have a health concern. I'm sorry, Travis, you're the building science guy.
I think what has happened is, so it's like, think about an airplane. Some of the early airplanes, there was like, you had a little windshield, but it was open to the air, right? You weren't worried about getting fresh air in the airplane. You just breathe. And then as airplanes got more sophisticated and wanted to climb higher, now you have to do more things. It's got to be more airtight. But once it's airtight, now we got to make sure we're filtering it, And then if you want to go to space in a rocket ship, it's the higher performance the airplane, the more you need things like the right kind of ventilation and airflow and filtration. Right. It's things like with a car. Like, it's one thing to ride in a convertible, but when you get in your car, you think of how much we've improved the way climate zones and air and all that, but those all have filters and all that. What's happened is with our homes, as we've gotten them tighter, we don't always bring in the right technology, the right mechanicals, right? So Corbett Lunsford is one of my mentors in the home performance space. He's got an incredible YouTube channel, Home Diagnosis. He's got 3 seasons of a TV show where they go in and figure out how to solve these problems with a home. And he says his kind of model is very simple: air seal, insulate, mechanicals.
Got it.
So I do the air seal insulate part, and then I have a great HVAC contractor to come in and say, all right, now that we've air sealed and insulated, what do we need to do on the mechanical side? Dehumidification, fresh air, filtration. And then sometimes, how many times, Matt, you go to a house and they had they knew they needed by code some fresh air. So they're just pulling a duct from a soffit, and they have a motorized damper going into the return, and it's basically been disabled, right?
Yeah.
Why? Why did they disable it?
Because they don't know what they're doing.
Well, but what's happening? There's a reason that they came out and said, let's disable this fresh air. It's because they have too much humidity.
Humidity, right? They think that is the culprit, but oftentimes that is not the culprit. That is controlled ventilation. And where the culprit is the areas where they slipped up, and we have uncontrolled ventilation.
Well, it can be, though. Here's the thing. If you dump fresh air in Texas into your return plenum, what are the chances that air is going to be a lot warmer than the air that's in your house? Pretty good.
Yeah.
That warm air coming into that plenum is now going to hit that evaporator coil on your AC, and it's going to increase the humidity in the system. So I think they disable it because it's every time the fresh air comes on in the summer, it just makes it more humid in the house. Well, there's a reason. It's because that hot air coming in is warming up the coil and adding moisture to the air. So that's just not a good way to do fresh air. It's a shortcut. Right. It's acceptable, but that's where doing it through a Santa Fe ventilating dehumidifier, so that you're not, or an ERV, so you're not dumping hotter air into the return.
Right.
So that's part of the problem is that it's, as we get tighter and the code requires some things and not others, guys don't understand they don't know what to do. I was talking to a guy, I won't name the builder, but they do really nice homes. And he was telling me, oh yeah, we put fresh air, we build tight enough that we have to put fresh air in all of our houses. It's like, well, do you put dehumidifiers? He's like, no. Why not? Well, the code doesn't require it. It's extra. They're like a high-end production builder. And he said they keep getting callbacks for, if they're lucky, people say it's too humid. But if it's really bad, they say I have mold. And he's like, that we should be putting dehumidifiers in, but we don't, at this level of, especially at that level of air tightness, because now the air conditioner is more efficient. It doesn't run as much. It doesn't pull out as much humidity. So you need dedicated dehumidification. It gets very complex, and we need great HVAC contractors. We need more of them.
That's for sure.
To help solve these issues.
I start to wonder if we're introducing some of our own problems to fix down the line, right? For example, I'm not advocating against more efficient homes, but down here in Florida, you've got houses that have weathered everything from hurricanes to termites to everything in between, and they've been here for over 100 years, right? I mean, every part of the country, we've got ancient homes, and it's like, so what has allowed those houses to hold up without modern efficiency codes over the years and still be relatively durable, still be relatively sound, to have aged gracefully in such a way, whereas with the sophistication that we have now with some of these new systems, we have to now think extra hard about, for example, like you're talking about, air sources and how much humidity. It's like, okay, we solved one problem, but by doing that, we just created another one. And this, to me, is now so regionally specific that, one specific building code is not going to solve for it. You're going to have to do this by region, right? You guys have a lot of humidity in Dallas. Imagine building things that tight in Florida, where humidity is just, we have air you can wear, right? So how do you solve for that? Something that I kind of was thinking on as you were talking about sealing things, is like, how does air tightness better affect or negatively affect things like stack effect in the wintertime? Because in Dallas, you guys still deal with winter to a small degree. Can you speak to that at all?
Well, sure. I mean, if you have the more air sealed your attic is in the winter, right, that hot air is wanting to push up. Well, you're keeping it, you're trying to cut off the path for the air to get out of the conditioned space, right? And so I call him building science Yoda. His name is Ken Allison. He's coming to speak at our BS and Beer this month. But he likes to say, if you stop the flow of air, you don't need much insulation. Like, a lot of the heat transfer is air transfer, right? And so I think getting it air sealed is going to help that. And I think maybe to zoom out and say, why do we build to begin with? What is the purpose of the built environment? Right? We're trying to separate ourselves from the outdoor conditions. Right? And if you've ever had the privilege of on a warm night being on a camping trip, and you're in a tent with another guy, it's not a pleasant night's sleep, right?
Yeah.
It is not a pleasant night's sleep, right? And you got to roll the right. It's like we've cut off the outside, but now the thing is, as humans, we create a lot of stuff. We have humidity, we have smells, we have skin that sloughs off.
Yeah,
methane. Yes, we cook. Like the act of cooking, and you're throwing off all kind of VOCs and pollutants. So we've enclosed ourselves so we can stay, out of the elements, right? I mean, the South really grew after the air conditioner was invented. When Carrier invented the air conditioner, because people were like, well, now we can live in this stuff. But the more you live in it, it's like, oh, what else is happening in the space, and how do we deal with it? And you're right. The tighter there's always a consequence. And maybe it's a way of thinking of it as just trade-offs. Think about with roofing. We see a lot of houses that originally had a wood shake roof on it, and they were a big gable, and they just have two little gable vents on the end, and they had wood shakes. Well, eventually we couldn't do wood shakes anymore, so we took those off. We decked the house, and now we have an asphalt shingle. So that whole assembly used to breathe really well with just these two little gable vents. It does not breathe well anymore, right? Because just the shingles themselves, it wasn't airtight all around. So that whole assembly could breathe. But then we changed the surface, the primary surface, and didn't change the ventilation. So let's put whirlybirds, let's put ridge vent, let's put, there's a house I've been working on that there is no soffit. There's just not any to pull air. And it has gable vents, ridge vent, and whirlybirds. And they basically have three different kinds of exhaust. It's not working. But the house wasn't designed to work like that. So we have to say, okay, we've changed something. What are the unintended consequences? How do we need to, and now what do we need to do to update the design, change the roof assembly, et cetera, right? So I think we have to do that with everything. And it takes time to evolve into how we need to handle all of that. Everything from the wall and roof assemblies to the inside to all of it.
We're just continually.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were asking, basically, why don't we build like we used to? Like, things were fine. Why do we have to go messing with it? And I think some of it comes down to changes in code. That, kind of like what you were saying, some things that we are not allowed to do anymore for various reasons. I mean, we used to do all kinds of crazy stuff. They used to put asbestos in homes, lead paint, galvanized water piping. We come up with better ways of doing things because we learn more. And then I think, there becomes this gray area because you want to, okay, if we know this now, if we have this knowledge now, let's use this knowledge to create something a little bit better. And then so we do that. But I mean, every time you try to make something a little bit better, there could be something else we did this, but we didn't do that. And this is really what's happening in production building right now, because they're kind of they got a toe in building science because people want energy efficiency. And that's the other driver, right? It's people. People want energy efficiency, right? The people want that. And so builders have to build this, or the people aren't going to buy the houses, or at least they have to sell them on it, right? So production builders are selling them on the energy efficiency, but they're not delivering. They're not meeting the expectations. And there's not really a whole lot of people that know what those expectations are, or how to achieve them. Not in construction these days. And man, it is seemingly a dying breed, construction, people in construction. We need people in the trades for sure.
Yeah, we do.
Now, Matt, you hit on something interesting there, which is the consumer demand as well. I remember seeing these were new construction homes. Gosh, like I said, almost about 10 years ago when I first started inspecting. And Washington, D.C. was going through a new construction boom where I was at the time. And, the guy that I kind of learned under, he pointed out a few things as I was going through on a few phase 2 inspections. And he pointed out some of the caulk work that was being done around exterior joints in the wall framing. And he's like, yeah, so if you look at this corner over here, if you look over these windows here, a lot of these builders, we didn't used to caulk these areas, but they're doing that now to sell it as being more energy efficient. You really think that that little bead of caulk was really doing anything? No. But the buyer's coming on site and they're going, oh, well, this separates them from this guy down the road, this builder down the road over here in this division. And for them, it was just that one little thing that they could do that made them more valuable than the other builder, right? But from there, you started to see fully encapsulated basements. You started to see closed cell foam, spray insulation, things like that. And so, I guess maybe consumer awareness does help to drive some of this to a degree. Travis, how have you really seen that affect your roof business?
Man, the roofing business, and it's the Wild West out here in Texas. So there's no license. There's no mandatory license in Texas. The only roofing license is voluntary, and it's through RCAT. And what I was able to get it last year and became one of literally 350 roofers in Texas with a license.
Wow.
We have like 15,000 roofing companies. And now some people are like, oh, the license doesn't mean anything, but okay, it's marketing, whatever. Hey, I went through I want the accountability. I want to keep getting better. But the incentives, have you ever heard the phrase, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome? Like, what are we incentivizing? So unfortunately, the way most people, especially in DFW, get new roofs is insurance pays for it. So they're always like, oh, I get a new roof, my insurance is going to pay for it. Well, as deductibles have gone up, that becomes a problem because guys used to just eat the deductible. And then how do they do that? How do they do a roof for less? Well, they cut corners. So people are used to this idea that, oh, well, I shouldn't have to pay for a roof. I've been paying my insurance premiums, which are high. They feel justified. And I get it, right? But because the roof, like I said, is this umbrella for your house, and it's important to do it correctly, to protect your home, protect your investment, protect your family. It really, to me, it comes back to the consumer. They have to get educated about what kind of roof do I want? I'll give you an example. So we've been out doing repairs the last couple of days after this big windstorm. And in fact, I just went to my last call before I came back to do this podcast. And I get there and he's got 3 little hip and ridge cap shingles in his hand. It's the only thing that happened to his house. It's the reason he had to call me. And I look at it, I was like, oh, well, this is 3-tab. It's not a ridge shingle, it's 3-tab. Because
low wind rating.
To save a couple $100, so many roofers around here will buy, instead of buying ridge shingles, they'll buy 3-tab, they'll cut it, and they'll create their own ridge. Okay, a 3-tab shingle, at best, on a roof, is at a 60 mile per hour wind rating. A ridge shingle, you can get 110 mile per hour wind rating. And ridges and hips are the most vulnerable to wind. Like, why would you take this cheap product and put it here? And so he paid me more to fix it. I was like, look, I'm just going to reattach these and nail them. Use some, here's another shout out for Sashko, use some through the roof to seal it.
There you go.
And you'll be good. Okay. And so I had to charge him. I went out there, did the work. What I charged him is more than it would have cost to buy the right product to begin with.
That's ridiculous.
Isn't that crazy? But they're doing it all the time.
And I guess that's the deal. Like, you carrying that license and that means something, right? It means, hey, there's something here to say, I am trying to give you value. I'm trying to bring the best, possible product to you as the client, and I'm licensed to do so. I went out of my way when I didn't have to achieve this, to try to give you that level of comfort.
Yeah. And then what I do, Brad, too, is part of why on my Instagram, especially, I'm just trying to, and I didn't just do the repair. I made a couple videos I'll post later because I'm trying to educate homeowners, and I can't remember who said this, it may have been Matt Reiser was talking about it. It's like, look, educate your competition for free.
That's good, man.
And so I have literally tomorrow, we're doing a fortified roof. And I think at least one guy's coming down from Oklahoma to see it. But I've invited 3 of my competitors to come and learn how to do fortified roofs while I do one. Because
Fantastic.
At the end of the day, I'll tell them, I'm like, look, we need more good guys. You know, the race to the bottom, that knows no end. And I'm not interested in competing, and I'm not competing with the guys that are racing to the bottom. The guys that are doing it well, I would love to lose a job to one of those guys because there's so much work.
That's a whole nother episode altogether, because we deal with this from the home inspection front, right, Matt? I mean, it's dealing with guys that are trying to undercut the competition. I had hopefully she's not listening to the episode because I'm doing a home inspection for her tomorrow. But, there's an agent north of me who I used to do a lot of work with up in D.C. And she said, hey, I've got this client for you, but you better not charge me those D.C. prices. I'm like, I'm going to charge you what I charge you. Because I just had somebody that was just up north of Tampa call me and goes, hey, what did you charge for this job that you last did? Yeah, we raised our rates. We would have charged $200 over that. You should probably do the same. And he's one of the leading guys in the area. But I had lost work in that neck of the woods before because an agent goes, yeah, I'm sorry, a standard inspection, a 4-point, and a wind mitt. I can find somebody that can do that for $375 all in. And I was like, then you can use them because I'm not making that drive for that money. You're like, but it's there's always going to be those scalpers. So you're bringing value, you're adding value, and you're doing it in ways that are going to be much more noticeable and realizable to a consumer than, just making a jump to something that is a massive upfront cost in the form of something like solar. These are practical things that they could do to really improve upon their home. That's huge. So, dude, we could talk about this all day, but there's a couple things that I want to talk about before we wrap up the show. Number one, because I've only got a little bit left here, I wanted to reintroduce a segment that I used to do on the show back in the day called the Drink of the Day. And this would be at some point in the future where we have a really cool little cutaway thing. But let's go left to right on my screen. Matt, what are you sipping on tonight?
Tonight, I have got a cup of Eagle Rare. I poured the
mother.
Yeah, I went semi special occasion for this one. I was feeling good about this podcast, so I went with the 10-year Eagle Rare. Cheers.
I love it. Cheers to you, Matt. Travis, how about you, buddy?
All right. So this is funny. It's a little embarrassing, but I was inspired by Matt's green light. You know, we talked about St. Patrick's Day's coming up, right? And so I have my little green light.
It almost looks like from the 3-person view, it looks like my screen is bleeding into Travis's screen.
Isn't that great? So I have a son-in-law and I have a son-in-law to be. My middle daughter's getting married in May. My son-in-law to be, he lives in Colorado. His name is Dallas, and he bought me a bottle of that Eagle Rare, and I would have poured it, but I finished it.
Congratulations. That's important to do.
So my other son-in-law currently, God love him, Zach, he's a good old boy. And he brought this over, and because there's some green in it, you can see not quite the color. It's a little light. Guys, this is the Jim Beam apple.
Oh,
hey. Let's go.
This is, you know what? Hey, it's a apple liqueur infused with Kentucky straight bourbon. So, it's a little on the sweet side, but hey, cheers.
It's a Thursday drink. A Thursday kind of drink.
Yeah, that's right.
So for me over here, I am wrapping up a little Sazerac, which I made with an ice cube tonight. You're not usually supposed to do that. You're supposed to use a chilled glass. But I cheated, and I wanted it cold fast because we were recording this show. So I whipped up the traditional New Orleans cocktail, the Sazerac, which is a great plug because Inspection Fuel 2025 will be in New Orleans this September, I believe. So stay tuned for dates on that because the show will definitely be live there too. But Matt, let's wrap it up here, dude. What were some key highlights from the Builders Conference, man?
Oh man, key highlights. When I go into this thing, I really never know what I'm going to see whenever I go through the expo, and so I did find a few really cool products. There is a product made by the cassette tapes, Maxell. Okay. They have I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but I made a video on it. But they make here, I have one right here. They make a product. MAP is another company that they have. Same company makes this product right here, which is a piece of flashing. It is basically just rubber, but it's got an adhesive on it, self-adhesive. And so, they make these with different size holes. They make them round, they make them square as well, and a couple of different things that you can use for flash wall penetrations. Obviously, we've got companies like Quick Flash and Greenskin that make products like this, but they are made with a lot of material. Well, the one thing about like Quick Flash is they make a big plastic piece, which is great and easy to tape, but that same plastic base is used for every one of them. So they have that same wasted material that's used for every one of them. These, if you got a small hole like this, they just use this small amount of material and it's just this self-adhesive. So you don't even have to have any tape. So I think that's a super cool product. I also ran into a company called Hydroblock, which I think is out of Utah. I think they're out of Utah. And they make a product that can be used for drywall. I've got a sample of it somewhere here. But it can be used. It's completely 100% waterproof. Now, I've not used this, so this isn't a plug for them, but it's completely 100% waterproof. It can be used in place of drywall. It can be used for sheathing. It's structurally rated and can be used for sheathing. It can be used under stucco. So you know how they were doing like there for a little while, they had like a hardy backer or a hardy board they would use and put a stucco material over it. I haven't seen this in a while now, but because there's so many problems in like our area, it's so humid. We have so many problems with moisture and stucco, right? Not just humidity, but just rain, period. We have so many problems with that. And so they were trying to find solutions to that. So they had this type of fiber cement board product that had like a cement coating on the outside that looked like stucco, but it wasn't. This can be done very much in that way, only the board itself is completely 100% waterproof, super duper light, but yet super durable. And I feel like it's got it was like an hour or 2 hour fire rating or something like that. Like it is a long time before it actually burns. It's almost like everything the guy told me, and again, I have no experience with it, but everything the guy told me was like, wow, like this is a pretty spectacular product. So Hydroblock, that was another one that I thought was pretty cool. Those are probably the two takeaways that I can really remember. I mean, I got a bunch of material, a bunch of things that I filmed. Also, Daikin. I visited the Daikin booth and didn't even realize that they have a large facility out here and real close to me, and invited me over to take a look at some of their equipment and do some videos over there. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Oh, it's awesome, man. Good stuff. So, well, Travis, we got to have you back on the show, man. Seriously, this has
fun,
been
man.
Awesome
Yeah, absolutely.
Conversation. Truly. And honestly, I think like next year, Matt, we need to just have you podcast live from the Builders Conference.
That would be good.
That'd be pretty awesome too.
We should totally do that.
Yep. But no, Travis, Matt warned me. He's like, hey, look, this might be the easiest episode that we've done just because, look, Travis can rip on so many different things. Seriously, I mean, we're at 50 minutes. This is going to be one of the longer episodes. I hope you guys have stuck around for the whole thing. Seriously. But Travis, where can they go follow you? Seriously, where can they follow you?
So I do most of my stuff on Instagram. Travis Builds It, and would love to interact with people, comment, ask questions. I love it. I'll be 52 in June, and one of the things I'd like to say is a couple of phrases that have become a part of my life more so in the last, 10 years than before, is I changed my mind about that, or I was wrong about that.
I love it.
And I think that's part of my journey in being able to share stuff. Is it's not all because I just know everything. It's because I want to learn, I want to grow. And if I get new information, I want to change my mind. And, we get too stuck, I think, in our way. So I love the whole Instagram world. That's kind of how Matt and I connected, and I've connected with so many others that way. And the great thing is there's a lot of people out there trying to do some good. So, I appreciate that, Matt. Super appreciate all your stuff, man. It's inspiring to a lot of people, and we love it, man.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise.
That's awesome. Well, you guys go follow Travis, follow Matt. follow the show too. Definitely make sure you subscribe because there's going to be a whole lot more of this coming down the road. Honestly, Travis, I feel like for our first long term, like if we're going to go full 3-hour Joe Rogan show style, like we're just going to bring, because this was easy. The easiest 15 minutes, that we've done, truly. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you right here next time on The Ride Along.
Right on.